Okay, welcome to the Metal Matt Podcast, and it's been a while since I've done one of these. I think the last one I did was the Joan Jett one on May 2nd, so it's been a while. And first and foremost, I want to give a shout out to undoubtedly my favorite website on the internet right now. I'll post a link to it in the description. It is Chuckys Playground, and it is an excellent forum. And all us Chucky fans are on there, and we talk about all 6 movies as well as the upcoming 7th one. And we also write amazing fanfics. Simon Gray has an excellent one based on the character of Nika from Curse of Chucky, so definitely check that out. It's a really great fanfic. And then we also talk about movies, music, just anything that comes to our minds. So if you want to join us, go right ahead to Chuckys Playground. I'll post the website link in the description and come hang out with us. And I'll see all of you on the playground. So now we are going to be looking at some news. And first and foremost, we are going to be looking at upcoming albums. And the album that I'm looking forward to the most is Weird Al's Mandatory Fun. And Weird Al, I'm a huge Weird Al fan. I love all his stuff. And that's the next podcast I'm going to be doing. And I'm going to be getting this album, Mandatory Fun. I'm going to try and get it the week it comes out. I'm not sure. I'm going to try and get it as soon as possible when it comes out. It comes out in 9 days. So I'm very excited about it. We have no idea what's going to be on there, really. As far as the parodies go, he might parody Blur the Lines, which I'm really interested to see how he does that. Or Royals by Lord, Fancy, Happy. So I'm really interested to hear the parodies. I'm also really interested to hear the originals because he writes some great original comedy songs. So that's definitely one to check out. And the next one, Pink Floyd looks like they might be doing an album. Pink Floyd, The Endless River, apparently going to come out in October. Nothing's really been confirmed yet. But what I've heard is that it's basically going to be kind of outtakes and material stemming from 1994's The Division Bell. And it's going to be Richard Wright's Swan Song. And Roger Waters won't have any involvement in it, which I don't really like that. But, whatever. I like some of the Gilmore fronted albums. Momentary Lapse of Reason is okay, but whatever. Slipknot. Corey Taylor of Slipknot said that Slipknot's new album is 98% done. I'm not the hugest Slipknot fan in the world, but I do like some of their music. So I'm interested to see how this is going to be going. And finally, another new album, Ted Nugent, Shut Up and Jam. It comes out this Tuesday, and I'm kind of interested in getting it. I've heard some samples from the album. They didn't really impress me, but I might check it out anyway just to see what Ted Nugent is doing now. It's the first album he's done since Love Grenade in 2007, around the 2007 mark. So this ought to be interesting. And of course, Judas Priest has a new album coming out. Cannot wait for that. It sounds like it is going to be awesome. So I'll definitely be keeping an eye out for that. And now it's time for the second one. It's time for Shoot the Shuffle, where I shuffle the first 10 songs in my iPod and I talk about them. Okay, so let's see what's on board for today. The first song is Misunderstood by Motley Crue from the album Motley Crue. As I've said before, underrated album. John Corabi, amazing singer. And Motley Crue, in fact, have actually just started their farewell tour, which is sad to see them go, but they're going out on top like they should, and they deserve to go out on top. Number 2 is Death Star by Tenacious D from Rise of the Phoenix. I really like the Tenacious D's new album, Rise of the Phoenix. Great album. And this is probably one of my favorite songs off there. So, yeah. And number 3, Living After Midnight by Judas Priest from British Steel. Arguably their best album, and this is a classic off there. So number 4 is Believe in Love by Scorpions from Savage Amusement. Scorpions have written some great rock songs. They have also written some great ballads. This is one of their great ballads. Number 5 is Shock Me by Kiss from Love Gun. I'm also going to be doing a podcast on Kiss when I get to listen to all their albums. And I've almost listened to all their albums. I just need to listen to Unmasked, Paul Stanley's solo album in 78, and Peter Criss's solo album in 78. After those 3, I've had to listen to all their albums. So, yeah. Number 6, The Number of the Beast by Iron Maiden from The Number of the Beast. Great album, great song, great band. So, they're pretty awesome. Number 7, Wanna Be Starting Something by Michael Jackson from Thriller. That's a great intro to what I believe is still the best-selling album of all time. It's got a great beat, kind of makes you want to get up and dance. So, yeah. Number 8, Hands of Death, Spook Show 2000 remix by Alice Cooper and Rob Zombie from The Life and Crimes of Alice Cooper. I just got The Life and Crimes of Alice Cooper box set. Absolutely tremendous. If you're a hardcore fan of Alice Cooper, definitely check it out. It's got some demos, unreleased tracks. Of course, all of his greatest hits. It even has some of his very, very early stuff with his old bands, the Spiders, the Nas. So, it's pretty cool to listen to. And Alice Cooper and Rob Zombie's collaboration was just absolutely brilliant. Number 9, Don't Walk Away by Rick Springfield from Hard to Hold soundtrack. I'm not sure exactly why I have that song on there, but yeah, it's actually kind of a good song, you know. Back when Rick Springfield was like the man back in the 80s. So yeah. And number 10, God Pounds His Nails by Fozzy from Chasing the Grail. And Fozzy is the band that Chris Jericho fronts in WWE. I really like their stuff. They have a new album coming out the day after my birthday, actually, July 2nd, 22nd. They have Do You Want to Start a War? I've heard some songs off there. It's really great, and I'm interested to check out that album. So that's all for Shoot the Shuffle, and now it's time to move on to the main event. And that main event is Aerosmith. And before I talk about Aerosmith, I just want to let you know that Aerosmith are one of my all-time favorite bands. I mean, I just love them. But that doesn't mean they haven't done some bad stuff, because they have done some rather mediocre albums. But for the most part, they're definitely hits for me. And their roller coaster at Disney World is also great as well. My favorite ride at Disney World. I pretty much rode it 4 times in a row, I think. Or at least 4 times one day. So, yeah. But now we're going to be starting off with Aerosmith's debut album back in 73, simply titled Aerosmith. And this is, it's an okay album. It's their debut album, so you know, it's kind of expected to be that. And the songs on there, you can tell that they're competent in what they're doing, but the production, I mean, it kind of leaves a lot to be desired, which it really isn't their fault. I mean, they were just starting out, and it is the 70s, so not a lot of albums did have good production anyway. So, but the standouts on here are Dream On, Mama Ken. Those are all great. Moving On is great as well. Write Me a Letter is underrated as well. So I think it's a pretty solid album as far as debut albums go. The next one, Get Your Wings, a lot better, much more improvement going around. Had better production values. Did great. Stuff like Same Old Song and Dance is kind of pretty good, though it's kind of a generic in some ways. Train Kept It Rolling, and I love the cover of that. And I love how it kind of segues into Seasons of Winter. Pandora's Box is also a great way to end the album. Lord of the Dies is very interesting as well, because the very beginning of it, it has it kind of has a drum beat similar to Walk This Way. Listen to that drum beat at the beginning of Lord of the Dies, and that's just interesting. So overall, it's a great album. Definitely a huge step up from the first one. And now Toys in the Attic in 75, and this was a tremendous album. This was kind of the album that really got them to be on top of the rock world in 1975, in the mid-70s. The intro, Toys in the Attic, is great as well. Uncle Salty, tremendous. Adam's Apple is pretty good as well. The big 10-inch record cover is also pretty cool as well. No more. That's all right. I'm not too crazy about that song. Sweet Emotion is great. Round and Round, probably one of Aerosmith's heaviest songs that they've ever done. You See Me Crying, NC album, the Ballad at NC album, that's all right. So Toys in the Attic is a very good record. Definitely, I'd probably check that out first as far as 70s Aerosmith goes. And in 76, they did Rocks, and they just kept improving and improving and improving. And Rocks is very good. Rats in the Cellar is a great kind of up-tempo rock track. Combination is great. Features Joe Perry's first ever lead vocal on an Aerosmith song. And Sick of the Dog, that's alright. Nobody's Fault, great song. Probably heaviest Aerosmith's ever been. Last Child's great bluesy kind of soulful song. That's probably my favorite song off the album. So overall, it's a very solid album, and pretty much if you want to know what the top rock albums of the 70s are, this would be right up there. So 77, Draw the Line, and this was really the first album where it wasn't really that spectacular. And really the only songs I like on there are Bright Light Fright, Kings and Queens, and Draw the Line. And that's pretty much it. A lot of it, the rest of that is pretty much filler. It's not that great. It's kind of generic 70s rock when you put it down. And so I wasn't too impressed by that album. Then a couple years later, in 1979, we had Night in the Ruts. And again, it's not that great an album. Chiquita is pretty interesting. No Surprises, also good as well. The cover of Remember Walking in the Sand is cool as well. But other than those three, it does leave a whole lot to be desired. Joe Perry left the band halfway through the recording of this. So that's probably why. It's not a very good album. I don't think it's a very good album. So Rockin' a Hard Place. This was, I like this album better than the last two. They had a new guitarist, Jimmy Crespo, who was pretty good. And their cover of Cry Me a River is great as well. Definitely underrated. Joey's Butterfly is also interesting as well. Lightning Strikes is okay. I mean, really the rest of the album is just okay. I say it's a step up from the past couple of albums, so that's not really saying much. But I think the album's okay. Then we've got Done with Mirrors. And this was the first album since Draw the Line to have all of the original members back. But it didn't really work out as it planned because it's not really that great of an album. They got some interesting songs that are like Let the Music Do the Talking's pretty good. She's on Fire is an interesting album cut. Gypsy Boots is also kind of good as well. Though I would really like only the beginning of that, because the beginning of that is pretty cool, but then it just turns into something generic and something that's not very good. But so Done with Mirrors was kind of disappointing. And then we have Permanent Vacation. And this is probably like the comeback album to end all comeback albums. Because this is a great album. And this is when they kind of changed their sound. They kind of went from being a hard rock band to not necessarily a pop band, but their sound definitely got a lot more poppier as it kind of went along. It kind of became glam metal and hair metal and all that type of stuff. They still kept their blues rock edge, their hard rock edge. And the intro, Heart's Done Time, that's alright. Magic Touch is a great album, underrated. Definitely check that out. St. John's, okay. Girl Keep Coming Apart is great. Hangman Jury is great. Dude Looks Like a Lady is pretty good. The movie, awesome instrumental. Definitely check it out. Ragdoll, one of my favorite songs by Aerosmith. So all in all, Permanent Vacation is a great album, and definitely check it out. And a year later, they released a compilation album named Jims, and on that is a studio version of a song called Chip Away the Stone, which is a really great blues rock song by them. And a live version previously appeared on Live Bootleg, which was one of their live albums that they had done. And it's probably one of the best live albums of all time. So now we move on to Pump. And I wouldn't say this is my favorite Aerosmith album, but it definitely ranks up there because it's a great album. They hit their second wind, as it were, because it's pretty good. Youngblood starts off the album very fast, great. Then it segues into Fine, or Fine, and that's a good one as well. Love in an Elevator, Monkey on My Back, it's alright, nothing special. The Other Side, great song, in some ways underrated. So yeah, Pump is a great album. Definitely check it out if you're an Aerosmith fan. I'd say if in the second era of Aerosmith, where to start at, this would be a good one to start with. Then after that, a few years passed, and then they did Get a Grip, and that's a good album as well. Well, and this is kind of where they got a bit more poppier than usual, but it's still great. Eat the Rich is a great way to start off the album. Get a Grip is okay. The title track is okay. Amazing is a great ballad. Crazy is a great one. That's a really great kind of blues song. Flesh at the beginning seems like it's gonna be cool, but then it's kind of a meh track, sort of like Gypsy Boots from Done with Mirrors. And Boogeyman, another great instrumental. And I do wish that Aerosmith would do more instrumentals like that because it's really good. But anyway, then we move on to, well, first of all, let me mention, they did another compilation album called Big Ones, where they had 3 new songs on there. Deuces Are Wild, that's a good one. Walk on Water, that's a good one as well. Blind Man, that's alright. But yeah, so 9 Lives, and back then I would probably say this is my favorite Aerosmith album because I just really like the sound of it. 9 Lives, again, great way to kind of open up the album. Has some great ballads. Hole in My Soul, Taste of India is pretty cool. Full Circle, that's okay. Something's Gotta Give, that's okay. A lot of the songs on here are alright, but the ones that really stand out. One that I would definitely give a listen to is Fallen Angels. It's the longest song that Aerosmith has ever done at 8 minutes and 17 seconds. So definitely check it out. Then they did Armageddon, and they did a song called I Don't Want to Miss a Thing. And to be honest, I find that song to be really overrated. Like, I don't really like that song. Like, it's way too slow for my liking. And another thing I would really check out is a live album that they did in '98 called A Little South of Sanity. And this was a good live album. This was actually the first live album I've ever heard. And so it's really good. In some parts, you can tell that the audience sounds are pretty fake. Since it's like the same sound over and over again, but it's pretty interesting to listen to. Then in 2000, they did a song called Angel's Eye, which can only be found on the Charlie's Angels soundtrack, and that's a good one. So definitely underrated. Then in 2001, they did Just Push Play, and this is probably the most commercial album they've ever done, because it is definitely pop. It kind of doesn't really sound like the Aerosmith that they were, because there are all these strings and all these electronic instruments. Honestly, I do like the album, but the part of me, I just kind of want a more harder sounding Aerosmith. I want a little bit more of a dangerous Aerosmith. But I mean, this album's pretty good as well. Just Push Play, the title track's cool. Jaded, cool. Fly Away From Here is a great ballad. Sunshine is a very good one. But it's probably a bit too commercial for my taste, but I think it's a cool album. Definitely interesting. Then a few years passed and they did a cover album called Honkin' on Bobo. And I'm not the hugest fan of cover albums. Some of them can be interesting, but for the most part, I'm not truly interested in it. And this one, it's kind of the same thing. They did all these blues covers that I never heard of. But stuff like Backpack Train's pretty cool. You Gotta Move, I'm Ready. Those kind of things are cool. But for the most part, I could do without this album. But I did like that they went back to the harder sounding rock and roll. This really does sound like it could have been released in the 70s. It definitely has that 70s sound to it, that 70s grittiness to it. So if you want a harder sound Aerosmith as opposed to the kind of more commercial and popular sounds of stuff like Just Push Play and Get a Grip, this album is definitely worth listening to. Then a lot of time passed, and it kind of seemed like we would not get another Aerosmith album because a lot of stuff just kept on happening that made it impossible. But finally, in 2012, Aerosmith released Music from Another Dimension, and I was looking so forward to this album. Like, I was hyped up for this album because finally a new Aerosmith album. So what's it going to sound like? And it comes out, and I thought it was alright. In some ways, it was a little bit disappointing. I mean, I still like it. Like, the critics really didn't like it. I mean, there were a few positive reviews now and again, but for the most part, people really just didn't like it. And I really don't know why they didn't like it that much. Like, I don't think it's a great album, but it does not deserve the hate that it does. But the intro, Love XXX, is great as well. Features Julian Lennon on backing vocals. Very Beatles-esque. Oh yeah, it's not very good. It's kind of a generic rock song. Beautiful is cool. I'll Go to Lights is almost 7 minutes, and it kind of reminds me of a mix between Rocks and Pump. It kind of reminds me of a mix between those two albums, and it's a great song to do. Legendary Child that's an alright lead single, and it's like half of the album is kind of like a return to the 70s Aerosmith, while others is an attempt to keep the kind of commercialism and pop sound on it. And it's kind of a mixed bag for me. But overall, I don't think it's that bad. After repeated listens, I think it's an alright album. It's not the best that they can do, but it was just pretty cool to have another Aerosmith album. So that's it for Aerosmith. And I really love Aerosmith. And I do hope that they do another album again in the future. Because I really love Aerosmith, and they have a great hard rock sound, and so that's all I'm going to say about them. Thank you for listening, and the next podcast will be a retrospective on Weird Al Yankovic. So thank you for listening, and I'll see all of you later.